I remember the first time I wandered near the forest's edge, the fog curling around my ankles like a cold whisper. The air was damp and heavy, carrying the faint scent of pine and something older, something alive hiding just beyond the trees. I had come alone, notebook in hand, hoping for a quiet evening under the dim glow of my lantern. The path was almost swallowed by the fog, and the occasional flicker of light from my lantern made shadows dance across the twisted trunks. Somewhere deep, a low hum thrummed through the silence, as if the forest itself was breathing. At first, I told myself it was just my imagination, the nerves of walking alone in the dark. But then the rustling started, soft, deliberate, too measured to belong to the wind or any small animal. Something was moving, always just out of sight, waiting. I stopped, breath shallow, heart tightening, and for a moment everything was still. And that's when I saw it. A shape, impossibly tall and wrong, stepping through the fog, its eyes reflecting the lantern's pale light like liquid silver. I never should have opened the path into the darkness that night. The forest is different tonight. Heavier. Like the air itself is holding its breath. I walk along the narrow path, my flashlight trembling in my hand. Each step presses into the pine needles, a soft crunch, then another. The sound feels too loud here, as if the trees are listening. The wind moves through the branches like something whispering my name. It isn't a voice, but it feels like one. A low hum, a secret being carried from tree to tree. I stop. The beam of light catches on the bark, gliding across rows of pale trunks that all lean slightly inward, like they're closing ranks around me. The pines are tall, so tall they block the sky. Only small threads of moonlight make it through, painting the needles in silver dust. The air smells sharp, like sap and cold metal. Somewhere behind me, a branch snaps, clean, deliberate. I turn, but there's nothing. Only fog rolling low between the roots, curling around my ankles. It feels almost alive, like breath against my skin. I keep walking, slowly. The deeper I go, the quieter everything becomes. Even the crickets fade out, as if the forest itself is waiting for something. I pass a cluster of stones stacked in a small clearing. 5 or 6 of them, balanced too carefully to be random. The pine needles around them have been swept clean. The air feels wrong here, heavier. Still, a shiver moves up my spine. The flashlight flickers, once, twice, then steadies again. The shadows seem to move when it does. Not fast, just enough to make me doubt where anything really is. There's a whisper again, closer this time. It doesn't come from one direction. It comes from everywhere. Soft, layered, like several voices speaking at once just under their breath. I whisper to myself, "Hello?" The sound doesn't echo. It just disappears. Then I see it. Something moves between the trees. Far ahead, a shape, tall but bent, its limbs long and uneven. I blink and it shifts again. Part of it gleams, like fur in the moonlight. The rest is dark, like it's wearing the shadows around it. It moves too smoothly, too fast. One moment it's by the fallen log, and the next, it's gone. The whispering stops. Everything stops. Even the air feels frozen. I can hear my heartbeat, slow and heavy like it doesn't belong to me. Then, from somewhere above comes a sound. A chittering. Low and wet, like laughter caught in its throat. I look up. Branches sway, but there's no wind. A pale shape clings there, half hidden in the needles. It's crouched, watching. The flashlight catches one of its eyes. Yellow, reflective, human, but not. It smiles. Or maybe it doesn't. I can't tell. Its face shifts, a flicker between animal and man, mouths and bones rearranging in the dark. The light cuts out. For a few seconds, there's only blackness, and the whispering starts again. But now it's right next to me, as if the forest itself has bent down to speak. I can't move. I can't even breathe. Something brushes against my shoulder, light as a fingertip, cold as fog. Then it's gone. The flashlight flickers back on. The trees look the same, still, silent, but I can feel it, watching. The chittering echoes again, fading into the distance. Each note slides under my skin, like it's learning the shape of me. I start walking back, but the path doesn't feel right anymore. It bends where it shouldn't. The pines seem closer together now, their trunks like ribs pressing inward. I try to follow my footprints, but they're gone. The needles have shifted, swept clean. Like I was never here. The whispering fades to a hum. Low, steady, inside the air itself. My breath fogs in front of me, though the night isn't cold. Something sweet lingers, like rotting fruit or sap left too long in the sun. When I reach the edge of the forest, the hum stops. Everything becomes still again, normal, almost peaceful. I turn once more. The pines stand silent, the fog curling at their feet. But somewhere deep within, something moves, slow, curious, almost human. And as I walk away, I swear I can feel the forest leaning closer, listening, like it has noticed me. And it's waiting for me to come back. The fog came early tonight. It rolled in low, swallowing the path and blurring the edges of everything familiar. I hold the lantern close, its flame breathing soft light into the gray. The glass clicks faintly as it swings from my hand, a heartbeat of fire in an ocean of cold mist. The air tastes like wet stone. Each inhale feels heavy, pulling the chill deeper into my chest. Somewhere to my left, something moves through the fog, a faint rustle, like fabric brushing against bark. I stop walking. The sound stops too. Only the lantern moves, a slow, steady sway. Orange light catches on the droplets suspended in the air. It looks like I'm walking through dust made of glass. I follow the path again, though it's little more than a suggestion now. A darker shade of gray beneath my boots. My eyes strain for shapes, for any edge or motion that isn't mine. After a while, I notice them. Faint tracks pressed into the mud. Too large for a fox, too narrow for a man. The rain had softened them, but the outline is still there, fresh enough to glisten. I follow them, carefully. The flame bends as I walk, painting the mist with thin streaks of amber. Each step feels slower than the last. The tracks lead deeper into the trees, then vanish, just gone. The mud smooths out as if a hand brushed it clean. The trail ends beneath a crooked pine that leans too far toward the path. The needles hang low, dripping with fog. I kneel, run my hand across the damp ground. It's soft, cold, but empty. Something presses at the edge of my thoughts, a feeling like being watched. It's quiet, but the quiet has weight. It rests between my shoulders, a presence just out of sight. I straighten slowly. The lantern swings wider now, its light trembling over the trunks. The fog moves with it, curling like smoke around unseen shapes. For a moment, I swear I see movement ahead, a faint ripple, as if something passed through the air itself. But when I blink, it's gone. The trees hum. Not a real sound, just a low vibration that settles in the bones. I whisper to myself, softly, as if it'll help. It's nothing. The fog doesn't answer. It only thickens, drawing closer until the lantern feels small, almost useless. I turn to go back. The path looks different now. The shapes of the trees have shifted slightly, subtle enough that I can't be sure. I take a few steps. The flame flickers again. Something brushes the edge of my coat, a tug, gentle, deliberate. I spin around, holding the lantern high. No one. Nothing. Only fog, curling and folding in on itself. My heart beats slower than it should. The silence presses closer, thick and humming, like static behind the air. I walk faster now. The ground squelches beneath my boots, the smell of wet pine rising sharp and sour. But the feeling doesn't fade. The weight on my back stays, watching, measuring. I keep the lantern raised, the light quivering across the path. Every few seconds it catches on something. A glint, a suggestion of movement. But when I turn, it's just mist again. I tell myself it's imagination, that the forest plays tricks in the fog, that I've been out here too long. Still, my breath comes too quick, and I can feel something behind me, not close enough to touch, but close enough to know. A faint whisper of air moves past my ear, cold and thin. It doesn't sound like wind. It feels like intent. The lantern flares once, then dims, the flame shrinking low. The shadows stretch long and trembling across the path. I pause. Listen. Nothing. Not even the drip of water. The silence feels alive now. I could almost reach out and touch it. Then a single footstep. Behind me, soft, wet. I turn, but the light catches only trees, their bark slick with fog. The mist swirls where something should be standing. I whisper again, "Is someone there?" The flame trembles, as if something had exhaled against it. Then the fog parts, just slightly, revealing nothing at all. Only emptiness. And the faint shape of my own breath. The silence holds for a long moment, then loosens, drifting away like smoke. I take a slow step forward. Then another. The lantern swings gently in my hand, the flame steady once more. The tracks are gone. The air feels thinner, lighter somehow, but the weight on my back never fully fades. By the time the trees open up, the mist is thinning. The night breathes again. I glance over my shoulder just once, only the fog looks back, and for the first time, I can't tell if I was being followed or if the forest was simply dreaming me. The night feels different here, colder, quieter. The trail winds beneath my feet, narrow and pale beneath the moon. It cuts through the woods like a scar, straight, deliberate, too perfect to be natural. The air smells of damp earth and pine sap. Every breath feels thick, like the forest is pressing closer. My lantern sways with each step, its light spilling through the fog, touching only what's right ahead. Beyond that, nothing. Just dark shapes and the faint whisper of leaves shifting in the wind. Somewhere behind me, a footstep echoes. Soft, measured, perfectly in rhythm with my own. I stop. The echo stops too. The silence that follows isn't empty. It hums, a low vibration under the ground, like the forest is waiting for me to move again. I keep walking. Slower this time. The trail narrows further until the trees begin to bend inward, their branches twisting together into a kind of tunnel. A hollow made of wood and shadow. The air grows still. Even the fog hesitates here. I step beneath the arching limbs. The bark is slick, cold against my shoulder as I brush past. Every sound feels wrong now, muted as if swallowed before it can reach my ears. My own breathing sounds distant, like it's coming from someone else. I look ahead and see nothing but more dark. The lantern's flame struggles, its light turning dull, as though the air itself is draining its color. A soft crunch echoes behind me. Then another. Slow, careful, following. I turn, but there's no one. Only the tunnel of trees reaching backward into the fog. The silence thickens, filling the hollow like water. It's so heavy that I can almost feel it pressing against my skin. Then, footsteps again. This time not behind me. All around, circling, too many to count. I raise the lantern higher. Its flame trembles, throwing thin light across the trunks. Shadows ripple along the bark like something moving just beneath the surface. I whisper to no one, or maybe to the forest itself. "Who's there?" No answer. Only the faint creak of branches above, stretching, reaching. My pulse slows. Each beat feels louder than it should, like it's echoing through the trees. Then I see it. At the far end of the hollow, past the curve of fog and limbs, a figure, still, motionless, too pale against the dark. I freeze. The lantern tilts in my grip, its flame drawing a line of orange across the ground. The figure doesn't move, doesn't breathe. It's standing just beyond the reach of the light. I can't see its face, only the faint shimmer of its outline, like it's made of the mist itself. I take a step forward. The fog shifts around it, thickening and thinning as if it's breathing through the air. My hand trembles. The lantern's glass clicks softly, echoing like bones tapping together. Another step. The ground beneath me feels hollow, soft in places, as if something lives under the trail. The closer I get, the colder the air becomes. A sharp chill bites at my fingers, creeping up my arm. It feels like walking into a memory that doesn't belong to me. The figure leans slightly forward. Just a fraction, enough to know it sees me. My throat tightens. The flame sputters again, struggling against something unseen. I take one more step, and it dissolves. Not fast. slowly, deliberately. The edges blur first, turning to wisps of pale mist. Then the rest, its head, its arms, its shape falling apart into the fog like smoke caught in water. Within seconds, it's gone. Only the fog remains, swirling where it stood. I wait, listening. The footsteps have stopped. Everything has stopped, no wind, no hum, just stillness. The silence here isn't peaceful. It's heavy, filled with something unspoken, a question left hanging in the dark. I lower the lantern slowly. Its glow pools at my feet, faint and trembling. The trees lean closer, their branches brushing above my head. I can almost hear them whisper against one another, a language too old to understand. I step back, then again. The hollow breathes. I feel it. A slow exhale of cold air against my neck. I turn and leave, my footsteps soft and quick. The fog curling around my legs like it doesn't want to let me go. At the edge of the tunnel, I pause. The air outside feels different, lighter, though my chest still feels tight. When I look back, the hollow is empty, completely still. But somewhere deep inside, beyond the bend of branches, a faint shimmer lingers. A shape, barely visible, watching, and as I step away, the silence follows me. Not behind, not ahead, inside, like something unseen has found a way to walk with me. The night hangs heavy, thick with the scent of wet leaves and dirt. I walk slowly beneath the canopy, where moonlight struggles to reach the ground. Each step presses into the earth, soft and damp, as the forest exhales around me. Somewhere ahead, the leaves stir. Not from wind, something else. It's subtle at first, a faint rustling like hands brushing through branches. Then it fades, as if waiting. The air feels too still. Even the fog seems to hesitate. I tighten my coat, the fabric brushing against my arm. Every sound feels too close, too sharp. The forest breathes differently tonight. Each movement of the leaves feels intentional, measured, almost thoughtful. I pause. Listen. The rustling begins again, from somewhere to my right. Quick, light like small feet darting through the brush. But when I turn, there's only shadow. A soft shimmer of dew on leaves and the faint smell of moss. Something shifts deeper in the undergrowth. A pattern, not random, not wild. It moves in circles, weaving through itself. The rhythm grows faster, closer, until I can feel it in my chest. A pulse beneath the air. I whisper to myself, just the wind. But the wind would answer differently. This feels like language. The leaves keep speaking, a low, hurried whisper of movement and breath. I try to listen, but the words are too soft, too strange. They slide through me like water through cupped hands. Then, between the shifting branches, a glint, 2 points of light, small, reflective, watching. My breath stumbles. I lift the lantern higher, and the fog recoils from the flame. But the eyes are gone. Only darkness remains, folded neatly around the trees. The forest grows louder. Rustles rise and fall, rippling outward like waves. Leaves tremble, twigs snap, air hums. Every direction at once. It doesn't sound like many things moving. It sounds like one thing, spread out, woven through the forest floor. I take a step back. The noise pauses. The silence that follows feels alive. It hums in my ears, soft and low, like the moment before thunder. I can feel it. That gaze again, heavy on the back of my neck. A pressure that makes me want to turn, but not too fast. When I do, the trees are still. Each branch, each leaf perfectly still. The air smells faintly metallic, like rain before it falls. Then the rustling starts again, right beside me this time. A flash of movement, something darting just beyond sight. The leaves explode with motion, then settle. I catch another glint. Lower to the ground now, closer. My throat tightens. I can't tell if the eyes belong to something animal or something pretending to be. I blink, and they vanish again. The rustling grows restless, building into a rhythm, a steady thrum that fills the hollow between the trees. It surrounds me. Front, back, above. The branches above begin to shake. Leaves fall in thin spirals, catching the lantern's glow before vanishing into the mud. It's too much, too loud. I whisper, "Stop!" And it does. Everything freezes. Not even the fog moves. Only my breath remains. Uneven, small, pulling at the silence. The quiet stretches. So long that I almost forget the sound. Then, from somewhere deep in the dark, a single rustle answers. Slow, deliberate, like a breath drawn through teeth. I lift the lantern again. Its light flickers across the trunks, but the world feels flattened. Like every shadow has turned to watch me, a faint shimmer ripples in the brush. Not movement, just the echo of where it had been. I take a step back. My heel sinks into the mud. The ground feels colder now, as if something beneath it is waiting to rise. I can feel the forest listening. Every branch, every leaf, every unseen thing. Then just as quickly as it began, it ends. The rustling stops. Completely. No sound, no breath. Even the crickets refuse to start again. I stand there, lantern trembling in my hand, listening to the emptiness I didn't realize could exist. The forest has gone hollow. Every inch of it, like it's holding its breath, watching what I'll do next. I take one slow step forward. The leaves don't move. The air doesn't shift. But something deep inside me does. A feeling like being remembered. I turn and walk away, each step quieter than the last. When I glance back, the path is empty. But somewhere beyond the dark trees, I think I see the faint shimmer of eyes. Still watching, still waiting, and the leaves. Just before I leave the forest behind, begin to rustle again. Soft, careful, like a whisper meant only for me. Snow fell through the night. Slow. Silent. By morning, the forest looked different. Every branch bent under a white hush, every sound swallowed whole. Even my footsteps felt wrong, too loud, too alive against all that quiet. The air was sharp, cold enough to sting the inside of my lungs. Each breath left a faint mist that lingered, curling away like smoke. The world looked untouched. No tracks, no trails, just a smooth blanket of snow stretching in every direction. Then I saw them. Footprints. Large, spaced far apart. Each one pressed deep, far deeper than my weight could ever reach. They led from the trees ahead, crossing the open clearing and fading into the distance, but not in any straight line. They curved, looped, overlapped themselves, as if whatever made them didn't understand where it wanted to go. I stood there for a while, watching the fog rise from their edges. The prints were so deep that the snow at the bottom had turned dark, wet, as if the earth had been exposed beneath. I crouched closer. The shape wasn't right. Not boots, not paws. Something in between. 5 long impressions, narrow at the base, wider at the end, like fingers. A chill moved through me. The air felt thicker now, heavier, as if the forest had turned to listen. I looked around. No movement, no wind, but every tree seemed to lean slightly closer than before. I took a step forward, following the prints. The snow crunched beneath me, a sound that echoed too far. Each time I moved, it felt like the forest held its breath, waiting. The tracks deepened as I walked, sinking lower, as though the creature had grown heavier with each step. Some of the prints split at the edges, as if something massive had dragged behind it. I followed until the path suddenly stopped. Just ended. No last step, no turn, nothing. The final print stood alone, perfect and clean, and beyond it only untouched snow. It didn't make sense. The silence pressed against my ears. So still I could hear my own heartbeat beneath my coat. I looked down again. The print wasn't just deep, and it was warm. A faint mist rose from it, curling into the cold air like breath. I stepped back, slowly. My boot slipped slightly, and a flake of snow dropped into the hollow. It hissed, melted instantly. I froze. A soft creak echoed behind me, wood shifting or something moving between the trees. The sound stretched too long, like a sigh drawn through a throat. I turned. The forest looked the same, white and quiet, but I could feel it, a presence watching. The footprints around me seemed different now. Not random, not wandering. They formed a wide arc around where I stood, a slow spiral tightening inward. I followed the curve with my eyes and realized I was standing at its center. My chest felt tight. I hadn't noticed before, but the forest was warmer now. The air shimmered faintly, a thin distortion like heat above a flame. I held my breath. Somewhere close, snow shifted. Just once, a faint, delicate movement, too close to be the wind. I raised my head, scanning the tree line. Between the trunks, something pale moved. Tall, narrow, its shape blending with the snow. I couldn't see its face, only the faint glimmer of something wet where eyes should be. It didn't move closer, didn't run, just watched. The fog thickened between us, spreading like a slow exhale. When I blinked, it was gone. The air felt empty again, but not lighter. Just hollow. I turned and began to walk away. Each step sounded too loud, as if the forest was counting them. When I glanced back, my own footprints looked smaller, shallower. But the others, they were still there, unchanged. I walked faster. The trees opened up ahead, their branches heavy with snow. I could see the pale line of the path leading back home, but even as I stepped into the clearing, I felt it. That gaze, cold and unblinking, settled on the back of my neck, following each breath I took. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The forest behind me remained still, blanketed in white. But somewhere deep within it, beneath the frozen quiet, something waited, its weight pressed into the snow, its eyes still open. And even now, far from the trees, I can still feel that cold, not on my skin, but inside it, as if whatever made those footprints never really left. It started as a thin veil, barely there, a soft mist curling between the trees. By dusk, it thickened, a pale wall that swallowed everything beyond arm's reach. I could still hear the forest then, the gentle drip of melting frost, the quiet whisper of branches brushing together. Familiar, comforting, but the fog kept growing. It gathered weight, rolling low along the ground, sliding against my boots like breath. Soon I couldn't see the path, only the faint outline of my hands when I lifted them in front of me. It smelled faintly metallic, cold, like wet stone and something old left to rot. I told myself it would pass. Fog always does. It drifts, it fades, but this one didn't move. It clung to me, wrapping around my shoulders, closing in whenever I tried to take a step. Every direction looked the same, white, soft, endless. I turned toward where I thought the road should be, but my steps echoed strangely, muffled, delayed, like I was walking inside someone else's breath. Then I saw them, two faint lights, low to the ground, small, at first. They hovered there, motionless, their glow sharp and cold, cutting through the fog like cracks in the air. I thought they were reflections, maybe my flashlight bouncing off ice, but they blinked, a slow, deliberate blink. My chest tightened. I stood still watching. The lights didn't move closer. They just stayed there, as if waiting. The fog pulsed faintly, thicker around the edges, curling toward me. I took a step back. The lights vanished. Gone, like they had never been there. But then, two more appeared, further to the left this time. Then another pair, and another, dozens now, all watching, some high, some low, none of them moving. I tried to speak, a whisper meant for myself, but my voice sounded too loud, too out of place. The fog swallowed it whole. Something shifted beneath the whiteness. A soft rustle, like fabric dragging over stone. I turned slowly, trying not to lose my balance. The air felt thicker now, pressing against my skin. Shapes began to form in the haze, long, thin, barely human. I couldn't tell where one ended and another began. The fog seemed to mold around them, as if it wasn't hiding them, but carrying them. Their eyes glowed faintly, each pair hovering in the mist, unblinking. I stepped backward until my heels struck a root. The fog around me reacted. It pulled inward, closing the open space, twisting the trees into unfamiliar shapes. Every trunk looked wrong, too bent, too smooth, like the forest had forgotten itself. I turned again, searching for direction, but the path I came from was gone. Everywhere I looked, only the same pale blur. My pulse echoed inside my head. The fog seemed to move with it, each heartbeat, a slow wave rippling through the air. The eyes followed those waves, dozens of them. Tilting slightly, as if listening, I could feel the weight of their gaze. Not on my skin, but underneath it. A cold that settled deep, threading through my bones. I whispered, "I just need to leave." The words trembled. The fog listened. For a moment, it grew still. Then it shifted again, slowly, like it was thinking. When I tried to move forward, the ground beneath me changed. Soft snow had turned to something slick. My boots slid slightly, and the air smelled faintly of ash. The trees ahead looked different now. Stretched tall, their bark smooth as flesh, and between them, those eyes. Closer. They blinked again, but not together this time. Some fast, some slow. Each rhythm a strange, uneven heartbeat. I stepped back. The fog behind me rippled, closing off the way I came. No matter which way I turned, the forest twisted to match. A looping path, a trap that breathed. The eyes grew brighter. They pulsed faintly with the fog as if sharing the same breath. I closed my eyes, trying to remember the way home. The old road, the clearing near the creek. Anything. But even my thoughts sounded muffled, muted by the air around me. When I opened them again, the eyes had moved. All of them, closer now, shimmering just beyond reach. I could hear faint movement. Not footsteps, but something softer. Like hands brushing against the fog, it was touching me, not with fingers, but with presence. A pressure that knew where I stood. I tried to move faster, but the world folded on itself. The fog swallowed everything ahead, and for a moment there was no direction. Only white, only breathing, then quiet. The eyes faded one by one until only darkness remained. The air thinned. I could see faint outlines again, trees, ground, the faint gray of dawn breaking through. I was back on the path, alone. The fog drifted slowly away, curling back into the forest like water retreating from shore. But even now, when I close my eyes, I still see them. Those cold, patient eyes floating in the mist, waiting for the fog to rise again. And I know when it does, they'll remember me. Dusk always feels heavier in these woods. The air cools faster here. The trees seem taller when the light fades, their branches bending low as if listening. I came only to walk, to clear my thoughts before night. But the silence settled strangely tonight. No birds, no insects, only the faint hum of the earth cooling. The path curved ahead, faint beneath a layer of fallen needles. I could see my breath, thin white clouds drifting before me. That's when I heard it, my name, soft, drawn out, almost tender. I froze. It came from somewhere to my right, deep between the pines, low, like it was spoken just beside my ear. But no one was there. I turned slowly, eyes adjusting to the dimness. Branches swayed slightly, though no wind touched them. I waited. Held my breath, nothing. Then again, a whisper. Clearer this time. The same voice. My name, but stretched thin, like it was being pulled through layers of fog. I felt my throat tighten. The air pressed against my chest. I whispered back, "Who's there?" My voice broke the stillness, and for a moment, I wished I hadn't spoken. It didn't sound like it belonged here, no answer. Just quiet. But as I turned to keep walking, I heard it again, closer, my name, spoken just once. Not a question. A call. It didn't sound wrong. It sounded familiar, like someone I should know. I hesitated, then took a few steps toward the trees. The undergrowth shifted underfoot, soft and damp, releasing the scent of wet bark and soil. The whisper came again, faint now, but urgent. Pulling me deeper, I knew I shouldn't go, but the forest seemed to lean around me, branches arching inward, guiding the way. Each step felt quieter than the last, Even the crunch beneath my boots faded, as if the forest didn't want me to be heard. The light dimmed further. Colors drained into shades of blue and gray. My name came again, but it wasn't the same voice anymore. This one was higher, breathier. It trembled at the edges. I turned in a slow circle. The trees looked the same in every direction. I couldn't tell where the whispers came from. Ahead, behind, above. They overlapped now. My name weaving through the air like threads of mist, each one slightly off, a tone too low, a syllable stretched too long. They were trying to sound human. The realization crept cold down my spine. I whispered my own name, testing it, hearing how it should sound, how it felt leaving my mouth, and from the dark, something repeated it perfectly, my voice. But not mine. The air grew still again. No rustling, no movement. Only the faint hum beneath everything. It felt like waiting. The trees pressed closer, their bark dark as wet stone. I thought I saw movement between them, something pale slipping out of sight. The whispers stopped, all at once. The silence was thick. I could hear my heartbeat, a steady, trembling rhythm. I turned back toward the path, trying to remember which way I came. But the forest had shifted. The trail was gone, swallowed by shadow. My breath caught in my throat. I took one careful step, then another. That's when it spoke again, so close I felt it against my ear, my name. Just a whisper, but it came from behind me. Slowly I turned. No one stood there. Only the dim outline of trees, blurring into the deepening dusk. I stared into the darkness until my eyes ached. The quiet pulsed around me, alive. Then I felt it, a faint warmth against my shoulder. Like someone's breath. I stepped back fast, heart pounding. But there was nothing. The forest stayed still, calm, empty. The whisper came one last time, soft, fading into the air, as if disappointed. I turned and ran. Not fast, just steady, following the faintest memory of direction. Branches brushed my arms, catching my coat. The air grew clearer, lighter with each step. And then I saw the path again. The pale strip of dirt between the trees. When I stepped onto it, the forest seemed to exhale. The pressure lifted. I stopped once, looking back. The trees stood still, quiet, bathed in the last gray light of dusk. No whispers. No movement, but as I turned to leave, I heard it again. Faint, distant, carried on the edge of silence, my name. Spoken like a promise. The trail was quiet. Tonight. Too quiet. Even the wind felt hesitant, brushing through the pines and dying before it. Reached me. I carried a small radio in my hand. It used to pick up faint stations out here, old country songs, sometimes distant chatter from hikers, but tonight it only hummed. A soft layer of static, rising and falling like breath. I twisted the dial slowly, each click scraping through the silence. Nothing, only that steady hum. The path stretched ahead, thin beneath a pale wash of moonlight. My boots pressed into damp earth, each step whispering back to me. The radio crackled, a brief spike, then quiet again. I stopped walking. The static faded. Just silence. Even the forest seemed to hold its breath. I waited, still as I could be. And in that stillness, I heard something, not from the trees, from the radio. A faint rhythm beneath the static. Soft, steady breathing. I frowned. Held it closer to my ear. It was slow, deep, almost matching mine. I exhaled. The radio exhaled with me. I froze. The breath stopped, too. I took another slow inhale. So did it, perfectly. I turned the dial again, hands shaking slightly. No frequency changed it. The breathing remained, woven into the noise like something alive. The hair along my neck lifted. I whispered, "Hello?" No reply. Only a faint distortion, a flicker of static that rose and fell like a sigh. I turned in a slow circle, eyes scanning the trail. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed but me and whatever was inside the radio. I took a step forward. The static deepened. Another step. The breathing grew louder, closer. It followed the rhythm of my movement. Footsteps. Inhale, exhale. When I stopped, it stopped. When I began again, so did it. I tried not to panic, but the sound felt wrong. Too close. Too deliberate, like something pretending to match me. I held the radio out, arm trembling slightly. The air pressed cold against my skin, thick and metallic, as if I'd stepped into an unseen current. I started walking faster, the static fluttering with each step. Breath for breath, it copied me. Sometimes a half-beat late, sometimes too soon, like it was learning. Then the pattern broke. It inhaled. But I didn't. A deep, wet sound, too human to be machine, too close to be real. I stopped again. The forest stared back, motionless. The radio hissed softly in my hand, as if waiting. The breathing continued, slow and heavy now. It wasn't mimicking anymore. It was watching. I whispered, "What do you want?" No answer. Just a small burst of static, then a pause, a faint click. Almost like a tongue against teeth. My chest tightened. I could feel my pulse in my fingers. I turned the radio off. The static died instantly. Silence. Relief washed through me for a moment, until I realized I could still hear it. That breathing. Right beside me, low, uneven. So close I could feel the air shift against my cheek. I didn't turn. Couldn't. The sound stayed for a few more seconds. Then faded, like something sinking slowly into water. I turned the radio back on. Only static, but now it pulsed. A faint rhythmic distortion buried within it. Like a heartbeat. Mine. And something else just beneath it. I walked the rest of the trail without stopping. The static followed quietly, rising and falling with every step. When I reached the clearing, the signal flickered. A small crackle that felt almost aware. I set the radio down on a rock, but it hummed louder, as if protesting. I backed away, heart pounding. The breathing began again. Through the static, through the air, 2 breaths now. One mine, one not. I left it there. But as I walked away, the sound lingered, soft and steady, until the forest swallowed it whole. Now, when the night grows still, I swear I can hear it again. That faint hiss under every silence, like something out there is still trying to match my breath. The forest felt older here, the air heavier. Each step I took sank into a bed of damp leaves, soft and cold, as though I was walking through the lungs of something ancient. The trees rose so high they vanished into darkness, their branches woven together above me, forming a hollow that almost looked like a ceiling, a cathedral made of bark and bone. Light filtered through in thin strands, pale and trembling, as if afraid to touch the ground. I stopped for a moment and listened. There was no wind. No birds, no insects, just a low hum, barely there, like air vibrating against itself. At first I thought it was my imagination, the ringing that sometimes comes with too much silence. But it grew clearer, deeper. It was whispering, faint, layered. Dozens of voices, all overlapping, each one too quiet to understand. They came from everywhere, from the ground, from the trees, from the air itself. The forest was speaking, but not to me. Around me, I stood still trying to make out a word. The whispers slid past my ears like water over stone. A shape flickered at the edge of my vision, then another. Too quick to see clearly. I turned, but the space between the trees stayed empty, open but full of something unseen. I felt watched. Not by one thing, but by many. The air moved differently here. Every breath carried a faint vibration, like the air itself had a pulse. Each inhale filled me with the scent of damp wood and something sweet, something that didn't belong. The whispers deepened. Some near, some distant. They circled me slowly, swelling and fading like the forest was breathing too. I took a step forward. The hum followed. Low, drawn out, stretching into the bones of the earth. A shadow shifted between the trunks. Tall, thin, gone before I could focus. Then another, closer. The whispers sharpened. A sudden rise like warning or greeting, I couldn't tell. I whispered into the air, "Who's there?" The forest seemed to listen. The whispers stopped all at once. Silence poured in, heavy and absolute. Even my heartbeat sounded too loud. I stood in that silence for what felt like minutes, eyes darting from one dark shape to another. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. Then, one single whisper. Low, right beside me. It said something I almost understood, a sound that brushed the edge of my name. My chest tightened. The silence broke again, the whispers flooding back, rising and falling like waves. I turned in slow circles, watching the hollow. Shapes swam between the trunks, slivers of movement. Not solid, not shadow, they drifted through the trees, each one faint, like the outline of something half-remembered. Their motion was too fluid, too deliberate. And every time one passed, the whispering bent around it, voices thinning, pulling away like they were bowing. The air vibrated harder now, a low hum pressing through my chest. It didn't sound like words anymore. It sounded like thought. The forest was aware, listening. I tried to step back, but the ground seemed to pull at my boots. The air grew thicker. Breathing took effort, and beneath it all, that strange sweetness. Like rot mixed with flowers, my skin prickled. Each hair on my arm lifted. The whispers grew sharper, harsher. They rose until I could feel them in my teeth. Dozens of overlapping tones, some low, some high, none meant for human ears. They didn't want me there, I whispered again, barely moving my lips. I'll go. The words trembled in the air, then vanished into the hum. The forest responded. Not in sound, but in movement. The shadows retreated slowly, sliding back into the hollow spaces between trees. The whispers softened. One by one, they fell quiet, until only one voice remained, a low murmur just behind me. Close enough to feel. I turned. Nothing. But the warmth of breath lingered in the air, even as the forest grew still again. The hollow stretched before me, dark and endless. The path ahead faint and crooked. I walked slowly, each step pulling free from the quiet. The air lightened. The hum faded, but even as I left the trees behind, I could still feel it. That faint vibration beneath my skin, that presence pressed against my thoughts. The forest had watched me, and I think in its own way it remembered my name. It began as a faint glow, barely visible through the branches. A trembling flicker, like candlelight lost in mist. The forest was darker than usual that night. The moon buried behind clouds, the path swallowed whole. I had been walking for hours, following the narrow trail that wound through the trees. Every few steps I thought I heard something behind me, a shift in the leaves, a soft breath too close. When I saw the light, I thought it was another traveler. Someone with a lantern, someone human, but the glow didn't stay still. It wavered, pulling back deeper between the trunks as if it knew I was watching. I hesitated. The air was cold, thin enough that each breath came with a faint taste of metal. Fog curled around my ankles, curling upward like it wanted to climb. I stepped closer. The light retreated, not quickly, just far enough to make me follow. It pulsed once, softly, like a heartbeat trapped in glass. My footsteps pressed into wet earth. Every sound felt too loud, as if the forest were holding its breath. Branches brushed my shoulders. Something cracked far off. Then silence again. The glow waited ahead, still flickering. Still pulling me in. I don't know why I kept walking. It felt less like curiosity and more like gravity, a quiet insistence that I was meant to see. As I moved closer, the trees grew denser. Their bark caught the faint light and gleamed like old bone. That was when I noticed the shadows. They weren't right. They stretched toward the light, longer than they should, bending at strange angles, as if the glow wasn't just shining, but pulling. Each time the light flickered, the shadows rippled. Shivering against the ground, I looked down, and my own shadow stretched with them, thin, distorted, reaching ahead of me, trying to touch that glow. I froze. The air pressed close, dense, humming quietly against my skin. The light trembled again. It was no lantern, no flame. It had no center, no source, just a hovering brightness moving between branches, breathing faintly. When I took a step, it drifted back. When I stopped, so did it. It was watching. I could feel it. The same way you feel eyes on the back of your neck in an empty room. I whispered, "Who's there?" The light swelled. A slow inhale, then dimmed again as though it had heard. The shadows beneath it twisted. They bent the wrong way, curling upward, reaching toward the glow like hands. I felt heat then, soft but sharp, brushing my face. It wasn't from the light. It came from behind me. I turned. Nothing. Only trees. Their shapes unmoving, their bark slick with dew. When I looked back, the light was closer. Half the distance now. Floating low, barely above the forest floor, its edges trembled, rippling like something alive. The hum beneath my feet grew louder. The earth pulsed faintly, as if something deep below was stirring. I took a step back. The glow followed. It wasn't drifting anymore. It was pacing me, every move mirrored, every breath matched. The fog thickened, wrapping around the trunks like smoke. The trees seemed to lean inward, their branches arching together until the path ahead looked like a throat. The light moved through it easily, waiting, patient. My heart thudded slow and uneven. I could feel the air vibrate in my ears like static without a source. I turned to leave, but the path behind me was gone. Only darkness, dense and smooth like the world had folded in on itself. The light brightened, just slightly. Enough to show that the shadows were no longer mine. They moved on their own now, stretching, swaying, as if carried by a wind I couldn't feel. I couldn't tell if they were drawn toward the glow or away from it. Both felt true. The hum grew louder, then stopped. Everything stopped, even the air, even my breath. The light dimmed, then surged, a blinding white that filled every space. For a moment I saw shapes within it. Figures without form, faces without features, all staring. Then it receded, shrinking back between the trees. Each pulse slower than the last, the shadows sank flat again. The fog loosened. The air returned. I stood there, alone in the dark. The echo of that glow still burned behind my eyes. When I finally looked up, the forest was quiet. But for a moment, just before I turned away, I thought I saw it again. A faint shimmer. At the edge of the path, at the edge of light. Waiting. The air was still. Even the trees seemed to hold their breath. I was walking the old trail again, the one that wound through the forest like a thin scar. Late evening. The kind of light that isn't day or night. Everything soft, gray, uncertain. I had been alone for hours. At least I thought I was, until I heard it, my voice, calling my own name. It came from deeper in the woods. Calm, quiet, almost patient. At first I thought I imagined it. The way sound bends between the trees sometimes. But then it came again. Same tone, same breath. Exactly the way I speak, it didn't echo. It responded. I froze. Every hair on my arms lifted. The leaves rustled faintly, like something slipping just out of sight. I whispered, "Who's there?" Nothing. Only the wind moving slow between the branches. But then, a soft laugh. Mine, too close. I should have turned back. I know that now. But there was something strange about hearing your own voice come from a place it shouldn't. It draws you in, like hearing your reflection speak. I stepped off the trail. The ground was damp, covered in a thin layer of fallen leaves. Each step sank slightly, breathing a wet sigh beneath my boots. "Hello?" I called again. A pause. Then the same word came back. "Hello?" Perfectly timed. Perfectly me, only the tone was wrong. Too light. Too careful. I moved closer. The trees thickened, their branches crossing like ribs. The air grew colder. There was a faint hum, low and steady like something alive buried beneath the soil. I spoke again. It spoke with me, every syllable matched, every breath mirrored. When I stopped, it stopped. When I tilted my head, I heard the faint creak of movement ahead, as if something else had tilted too. A shiver crawled up my spine. I felt watched, but not from one direction. Every shadow seemed aware. The fog began to gather, thin at first, then dense enough to swallow the space between the trees. I took another step forward. The light dimmed around me. Then I saw it, a shape standing a few yards ahead. Still, almost blending with the gray. It looked like me. Same height, same outline. The same stillness I held when afraid to move. Its face was hidden in the dark, but I could feel it watching. I lifted my hand slowly. It did too. A perfect mirror. My breath caught. Cold air slipped past my teeth, shaking on the way out. I lowered my hand. So did it, I whispered. Stop! It smiled, not wide. Just enough. Enough for me to see my own teeth reflected back. The fog thickened. I could hear it breathing now, quiet, deliberate, a whisper that filled the space between our steps. I turned to run, and the forest moved with me. Branches scraped my shoulders. Leaves brushed my face. Behind me were footsteps, perfectly timed with mine. Every time I paused to listen, they stopped too. Every time I tried to trick it, to change my pace, it followed exactly. My heartbeat quickened, but its rhythm followed mine. Breath for breath, step for step, a cruel imitation. When I reached the clearing, the fog thinned. The air opened, and for a moment I thought I was alone again. But when I looked down, there were two sets of footprints beside mine, identical. I backed away slowly. The forest seemed to tilt around me, its shapes bending inward. I whispered one last time, not to it, but to myself, don't look back, and I didn't. But in the silence that followed, I could hear it still, standing somewhere behind me, breathing softly, waiting for me to turn. Sometimes, when I walk that trail again, I catch my reflection in the puddles after rain. It smiles before I do, and then it waits, just long enough to remind me that something out there still knows my name. It began as a thin veil, a low mist crawling across the ground. By the time I noticed, it was already too late to turn back. The air was colder than before. Heavy. The kind that clings to your skin and makes every breath feel borrowed. I watched as the trail disappeared piece by piece, the trees melting into pale shapes, the horizon folding in on itself. I stood still for a while listening. No birds, no wind, just that dense silence pressing in from every side. Then, a sound. Footsteps, soft, measured, not mine. They came from somewhere to my left, then to my right, then behind me. I turned, but the fog was a wall now, solid and endless. I started walking again, carefully, feeling the damp earth beneath my boots. Each step felt louder than it should, too sharp against the stillness. I tried to follow the shape of the trees, but their outlines twisted in the haze, branch to limb, shadow to shadow. The world looked familiar, but not in a way I could trust. Every few seconds, I caught movement between the gray folds, something dark and slow. It stayed just far enough away to keep me guessing. My heart picked up pace, but my steps stayed even. I didn't want to sound afraid. Not out loud. Then the footsteps started again, perfectly matching mine. When I stopped, they stopped too. I whispered into the fog. "Who's there?" Nothing. Only the faint hum of the air shifting, as if the fog itself breathed. I started forward again, quieter this time, counting the seconds between my steps. 1, 2, 3. A rustle. Closer now. Something brushed against my sleeve, cold, almost like a fingertip, but softer, like mist with weight. I froze. There was no direction anymore. No up or down, just that endless pale gray, and the slow drag of unseen movement around me. I could smell wet soil, pine, and something else, metallic. Like rain before it falls. I tried to steady my breathing, but it came out shallow, shaky. Each exhale felt like it lingered too long, echoing back toward me. That's when I realized the echoes weren't mine. There were two sets of breaths now, perfectly spaced, perfectly timed, one mine, one not. The fog pulsed once like it was alive. It shifted and swallowed the trees again, erasing their edges until only faint shapes remained, and in one of them, a figure, still, watching. Its outline swayed gently, like something caught between standing and falling. I blinked, and it blurred into the mist, leaving a faint shimmer behind, as if it had been made of light instead of flesh. My throat tightened. I turned in the direction I thought I came from, but every step only led deeper into gray. The air thickened. My lungs ached. It felt like walking underwater. I began to hear the footsteps again. Not behind me this time. Beside me, moving in rhythm, and then a low whisper. My name, drawn out, soft as breath against glass. I didn't answer. I just kept walking, eyes on the shifting ground, trying to ignore the pull behind my ribs, that instinct to look. The fog moved again, slow and deliberate, folding like curtains, and for a brief second, the shapes inside it shifted. Figures, many this time, half-formed, bending in strange directions. Their eyes glinting pale, their faces unreadable. They didn't move toward me. They only watched, waiting. The footsteps stopped. The whisper faded. Only the silence remained. I kept walking until my legs trembled. Until the fog thinned and the trail appeared again beneath me. Damp, cold, familiar. When I finally looked back, the fog still stood there like a living wall. Quiet, unmoving. But I could feel it watching. Even now. Sometimes I wake in the middle of the night and hear faint steps somewhere in the dark of my room. Soft, measured, waiting for me to breathe again. It was early evening when I left the cabin. The air was still. Too still. The last streaks of sunlight faded behind the tree line, and the path ahead sank into dim gray. I walked slowly, boots pressing into damp soil, the scent of pine and cold earth rising with each step. The forest was quiet in that strange way. Not peaceful, but waiting. My breath came out pale in the fading light. Each exhale felt heavier, like the air itself was thick with something unseen. Then I heard it. Footsteps, behind me, soft, offbeat, a half-second behind mine. I paused. And they paused, too. The forest held its breath. Branches creaked far away, but the path behind me stayed empty. I turned slowly, expecting to see an animal, a trick of echo, anything. Nothing. Just the stillness. Just me. I told myself it was nothing. That the woods could throw sound around like that. That maybe it was just the way the wind carried noise between the trees. I kept walking. The steps followed. Always there. Always just a little late. Like a shadow trying to remember how to move. A chill climbed my neck. I tightened my scarf and kept going. The path curved, leading deeper into the trees. Darkness pooled between the trunks, thick as ink. The rhythm of my steps became uneven, not because I wanted them to, but because I was listening too hard. Each crunch of gravel, each soft press of leaves underfoot was answered. Perfectly. But off. Slightly delayed, as if whatever followed, was learning how to walk by listening to me. I stopped again. Quickly this time. The echo lagged a heartbeat too long before it stopped too. That pause, it told me it wasn't my echo. I swallowed. My throat felt dry. The forest pressed close, heavy with silence. I could hear my own pulse in my ears, loud, uneven, like it didn't belong to me anymore. I turned halfway and whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. Only the faint hum of air moving between the trees. The soft drip of water from somewhere unseen. I waited. Nothing. So I walked again. Faster this time. The steps matched mine, still lagging that single beat. When I slowed, they slowed. When I sped up, they did too. Until I ran. Branches whipped past me. The air stung my face. My heartbeat thundered in my chest, and yet, through all of it, those footsteps stayed behind me. Never closer. Never farther, always the same distance. Always the same rhythm. When I finally stopped, gasping for air, they didn't stop immediately. They took one more step, then another, as if Whoever it was hadn't realized I'd stopped yet. The sound faded slowly, like someone backing away into the dark. My lungs burned. My hands trembled. I stood still for a long time, watching the trees blur into shadows. The forest felt wrong, bent, like it was leaning toward me. I could feel something there, close, listening. I whispered again, my voice shaking, "What do you want?" No answer came, only silence, so heavy it felt like a hand on my chest. Then, a breath, right behind me, warm, human. I spun around. The path was empty. Nothing moved. Not a branch, not a leaf. But the air still felt disturbed, like someone had been standing inches from me and stepped away only when I turned. I didn't move for a long time. The sky was black now, the last traces of light gone. And still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something stood nearby, just outside the reach of sight, waiting for me to walk again. When I finally forced myself forward, the steps didn't follow. The forest was quiet, but the silence felt wrong, like holding your breath underwater and realizing something else is holding it for you. I made it back to the cabin long after dark. The air inside was cold, though the windows were shut tight. I locked the door, sat on the floor, listened. For a while, there was nothing. Then, faintly, one soft step on the porch outside. Offbeat, patient, waiting. Night had already settled when I reached the clearing. The forest there was denser, older, its trees twisted into shapes that felt almost watchful. Mist hung low, brushing my knees like cold fingers. Each breath came out white and lingered too long in the still air. The moon was hidden behind heavy clouds. Only a faint silver haze filtered through the canopy, just enough to see the outlines of trunks, the shape of the path. Every sound felt too close, the rustle of leaves, the quiet hum beneath it all, like the forest was breathing, slow and steady beside me. I stopped near a fallen tree, the bark slick beneath my hand. The smell of damp wood and old moss filled the air. Then, I saw it. At first, I thought it was just a darker patch among the trees, a trick of shadow and distance. But then it moved. Something crouched low in the farthest corner of the clearing, still, unmoving. Its outline was thin, almost human, but not quite right. The head tilted, as if listening. And then, those eyes, two hollows, black and deep, where eyes should have been, not reflecting moonlight, not catching a single shimmer, empty, but I could feel them on me, like weight pressing into my chest. I wanted to look away. I couldn't. The air thickened, a low hum growing beneath the silence. Every part of me screamed to turn back, to run, to forget I'd ever come this far. But something in those hollow eyes pulled me closer. My feet moved on their own. Leaves crunched softly beneath me, the sound swallowed by the mist. Step by step, the thing came into clearer view. Its limbs were long, too long. The joints bent wrong, as if it had learned how to move by watching people from afar and getting it. Almost right. The skin, if it was skin, was pale gray, stretched thin, like wax over bone. And those eyes, those holes, they didn't just look at me. They pulled at me. A strange dizziness crawled up my neck. My ears rang. Everything around me seemed to dim. I whispered, not sure why. "What are you?" The creature's head tilted again, slow, curious. Then it smiled, not wide, not grotesque, just a small, wrong curl of lips that didn't fit its face. I felt the forest lean closer. The air trembled. A faint static filled my ears. The thing shifted forward, its hands sinking into the soil, its body unfolding from the crouch with movements too smooth, too deliberate. I stumbled back, but my gaze stayed locked on those hollow eyes. They seemed to widen, not physically, but in presence, like the darkness inside them was growing, reaching toward me. My heartbeat stuttered. My breath came short. The world around us, the trees, the fog, the path, faded into a blur. There was only it. And me. Then, a sudden sound, like something breaking far away. The creature froze. Its smile vanished. It straightened slowly, head twitching toward the noise. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it sank backward into the dark. Gone. The space where it had been looked empty, but not peaceful, like the shadows themselves still remembered its shape. I stood there, unable to move, listening to the silence that followed. The hum had stopped. The forest felt drained, and yet, even with it gone, I could feel it, watching, waiting, as if those hollow eyes had never closed. I walked back slowly, every step heavier than the last. The mist clung to my legs, the air colder now. I didn't look behind me, but when I passed the last row of trees, I saw something in the corner of my vision, just for a moment, a pair of dark circles. Shimmering faintly in the fog, watching me leave, I kept walking. And that night, when I finally closed my eyes, the darkness behind them didn't feel like sleep. It felt like those same hollow eyes, waiting for me to look back. The forest was still. Too still. The kind of quiet that feels alive, where every breath seems to echo back at you. I walked slowly, my boots pressing into soft earth, each step sinking into layers of old leaves. The air was sharp, cold enough that it bit the edges of my lungs. I could smell wet bark, the faint sweetness of rot beneath it. Evening was falling. Pale light filtered through the branches, not golden, not gray, just faded. I stopped for a moment, listening. There was no wind, not even the smallest tremor in the trees. And yet something brushed against the back of my neck, warm, soft, like a slow exhale. I froze. The warmth lingered, barely a whisper of breath against the cold air. It felt close, too close, as if someone stood right behind me. I turned, slowly, carefully, nothing, only the forest. Still, unmoving. The leaves at my feet trembled then. A faint rustling that didn't match my steps. It came from behind again. Then to the side. Then from nowhere at all. Each sound rose and fell like lungs drawing breath. In, out, in, out. The forest was breathing with me. I could feel it. My own chest tightened, trying to match its rhythm. Trying to stay quiet, to not disturb whatever else was sharing the air. When I exhaled, something exhaled too, but not quite the same. Lower. Longer. As though the trees themselves were sighing through unseen mouths. The mist around me stirred, curling like smoke around my shoulders. I whispered, "Is someone there?" My voice came out small, swallowed by the space between trunks. No reply. But the air shifted. Cold again, the warmth gone, and in its place, a silence that pressed inward, dense and listening. I felt the hair on my arms rise. The forest wasn't breathing anymore. It was waiting. The leaves had stopped moving. The branches didn't creak. Even the ground beneath my boots felt like it was holding still. Then, from somewhere close, a rustle. Soft, measured, like fingers dragging through dry leaves. I turned my head, slowly, just enough to see the edge of the trail. Shadows swayed between the trees. Too dark for the hour, too close for comfort. Something shifted behind me, a breath again, but sharper this time. Right against my skin, I felt it move a strand of hair. The warmth of it trailed along my neck, and I could hear the faintest hum beneath the exhale, like a voice too quiet to form words. I wanted to run, but my legs didn't move. I waited for another breath. It didn't come. Only silence, a deep, thick silence that swallowed everything. Even my own heartbeat felt quieter, muted beneath the weight of it. I turned again. Nothing there, but the ground behind me was disturbed. The leaves parted, as if something had stepped forward and stopped an inch from my back. I couldn't breathe. I didn't dare to. Then, as I finally took a step away, I heard it. A single inhale. Sharp. Deep. Right where I had been standing. The forest answered. The trees swayed without wind. The mist recoiled. And in that brief moment, I could swear I felt something unseen lean forward, close enough to feel the heat of its breath again, and then vanish. No footsteps. No movement, just gone. The cold rushed in to fill the space it left behind. I waited there for a long time, listening to the forest try to remember how to be quiet again. But even as the stillness returned, it didn't feel right. The air stayed heavy. The mist hovered low, and every now and then, just as I thought I was alone, I felt it again, that warmth, that rustling breath, just close enough to touch, like the forest was leaning in to whisper right against my skin that it was never really gone, that it was simply waiting for me to breathe first. The fog came early that night, thick, pale and heavy, like something poured between the trees instead of drifting through them. The forest was silent beneath it. Every shape softened, every shadow stretched. Even my breath felt muted. I walked slowly, following the faint outline of the path. The ground was damp beneath my boots, each step pressing into soft earth that refused to echo. It felt like walking through someone's dream. Then, a sound cut through it. Low, distant, a single howl. It came from somewhere deep in the fog. A voice that didn't belong to any creature I knew. It wasn't sharp or wild. It was hollow, empty, but full at the same time. It moved through me, a vibration more than a sound. The trees seemed to lean with it, their branches trembling faintly as if responding. I stopped walking. The air pressed against my ears. The silence that followed thick and uneven, like something holding its breath. Then, the howl came again, but this time it split. One voice became two, then three, each one layered, echoing at strange intervals, spiraling around me. I turned in place, trying to find the direction. It was everywhere. The fog pulsed with it. It didn't just carry the sound, it shaped it, bent it. It felt close enough to touch. I whispered, "Is someone out there?" The question dissolved into the haze. No answer came, just another call. Longer this time, sharper around the edges. My chest tightened. It felt like the forest was breathing again, each tree vibrating in rhythm with the howls. The ground trembled faintly beneath me. Not an earthquake, but something softer. Like a heartbeat, slow and deep, traveling through roots. I could smell the fog now, damp and metallic. It clung to my tongue, cold and sour. Then the howls changed. They rose higher, thinner, shifting pitch in ways a throat shouldn't. I could hear one behind me, another to the left, another far ahead, circling. I took a step back, and they stopped. Every sound vanished, swallowed whole. The silence that followed felt like something watching. I stood there, still as I could, listening for breath. Nothing moved. Then a new sound crept through. So faint at first. I thought it was in my head, a low hum just under the surface of hearing. It grew louder. The air seemed to vibrate with it, pressing against my ribs, making the tiny hairs on my arms rise, and beneath that hum, a whisper. Not words, but rhythm. Like the forest was repeating the sound of its own name. The fog thinned for a heartbeat. And in that pale gap, I saw them, shapes, tall to thin, moving between the trunks with slow, deliberate grace. Each motion left a faint distortion behind, as if the air bent around them. Their mouths didn't move. But the howls came from where they stood. The pitch of their cries rose and fell with their movements. When one leaned forward, the others echoed. The forest answered. The sound crawled across my skin. It didn't just pass by, it entered. It filled me. I could feel it vibrating inside my chest, like my own breath wasn't mine anymore. I covered my ears, but it didn't help. It wasn't sound anymore. It was inside. My knees weakened. I stumbled against a tree, the bark slick with moisture, and whispered, "Please stop." The moment the words left my lips, everything did. The howls ended. The hum ceased. Silence, so deep it rang. I waited. 1 second, then 2. The fog pressed closer again, swallowing the pale outlines of the shapes. Gone. The forest didn't breathe. It didn't move. Only my heart kept time. When I finally turned to leave, the ground beneath me shuddered once more. A faint reminder. And from somewhere far behind me, in the thickness of the fog, came one last sound, a low, drawn-out howl, soft, almost human. It rose slowly, then broke apart, splitting again into many. They didn't chase me. They just followed, not in footsteps, not in form, but in the air itself, in the hum between trees, as if the forest had learned my shape and was calling it back to itself. The fog had thickened overnight. By morning, it had turned the forest into something unfamiliar. The air felt heavier, wet against my face, cold in a way that seeped through my coat and settled into bone. Each breath came back to me in a faint cloud, as if the world was exhaling in rhythm with me. I walked quietly, boots pressing through frost-hardened ground, every step snapping against the silence. The trees loomed like shadows drawn in charcoal, blurred at the edges. Soft but watching. Then I stopped. There. Between 2 trunks, something stood, half hidden in the mist, still, almost human. My throat went dry. It didn't move. Didn't tilt its head, didn't shift a single inch, but I knew it was looking at me. That gaze, cold and deliberate. Even through the haze, I could feel it, a line drawn straight from its eyes to mine. I blinked, and when I opened my eyes, it was closer. Not by much, but enough that my chest tightened. Enough that I knew it hadn't just been the fog playing tricks. I took a step back. The air pressed in tighter. The silence grew louder. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Something in me, something small and animal, knew that breaking eye contact would be worse. The figure's face was pale, but not with light. It was pale the way ashes are, color drained, textureless. The mist seemed to cling to it, curling around its shoulders like breath that didn't belong. I blinked again, and it was closer, the space between us shrinking without motion, each blink pulling it nearer, as if my own eyes betrayed me. I wanted to move, to turn and run, but my legs were locked. The forest waited around us, each tree holding its breath. There was no wind, no movement, only the hum beneath the quiet. That low electric feeling when the world stops just before a storm. My fingers ached from the cold. I could feel the pulse in them, slow and trembling. The figure didn't breathe. It only watched, a shadow where its eyes should have been. Dark, wet, shifting like something alive beneath the surface. The more I looked, the less human it became, the shoulders too long, the arms too thin, its stillness unnatural, a pose that no living thing could hold. I whispered, "Please," but the word barely reached my own ears. The fog swallowed it whole, and then, for the smallest second, it tilted its head. The motion was wrong. Not smooth, not curious, a sharp, broken twitch, as though its neck had forgotten how to move. The moment it did, a chill crawled up my spine. My vision blurred. I blinked again, and the figure was right there, just beyond the tree line. Close enough to see the outline of its jaw, the glint of frost clinging to the hollow where its mouth should be. But it wasn't closer because it moved. It was closer because I looked. Each glance pulled it nearer. Each breath invited it in. I understood that now. The fog trembled. So did I. My heartbeat slowed to match the rhythm of the forest. A dull, steady thud echoing in the cold air. I felt something behind my eyes, a faint pressure, like the fog had found its way inside. And then I blinked. The figure was gone. The space it had filled remained darker, thicker, as if the mist refused to close around it. I didn't move. Couldn't. Every instinct screamed that it was still there, just shifted out of sight, watching, waiting. The silence stretched thin until even my breath felt too loud. I tried to look away, to force my eyes to focus on anything else. But my gaze kept drifting back to that same empty patch of fog. And in that pale blur, for just a heartbeat, I saw the faint outline of a face again, closer this time, almost touching the edge of my vision, unblinking, frozen, waiting for me to blink once more. I still don't know how long I stood there. The fog never lifted. The forest never exhaled again. But sometimes, in the quiet between dreams, I still feel it. That gaze, fixed somewhere behind my eyelids, waiting for me to close them. The sun was out, but the light felt pale. It touched everything. The fields, the fence, the road, but not me. I could feel warmth on my face. Yet somehow it didn't reach inside. The sky was wide and open, a soft gray blue that carried no sound but the wind's faint hum. And still, I wasn't alone. Even here, where shadows should be gentle and clear, something followed. It began days ago, or maybe longer. It's hard to remember when I first noticed it. Just that one evening, while walking home, my shadow moved wrong. At first, I thought it was the light, the street lamps flickering, the fading sun stretching the shapes, but when I stopped, it didn't. It leaned ever so slightly forward, like it was listening. I remember holding my breath. I remember the air tightening, the world turning very still. It shouldn't have felt alive, but it did. Now I see it everywhere I go. Even now, standing in the open field, I can feel it brushing against my heels. It stretches long in front of me, too long. The shape blurred, the edges trembling softly against the grass. I move my arm. It follows. A second later. Slightly delayed, as though it's thinking about it. The air feels thicker then. A quiet hum begins in my ears, low, steady, like breath held too long. I turn, slowly, just to see if anything's behind me. Nothing. Only the wind curling through the weeds, and that endless hum beneath the silence. I tell myself not to look down. But I do. It's still there, attached. But not mine. The shape is wrong. Too narrow in the shoulders. Too long in the arms, it bends where I don't bend. It moves in ways my body can't. Sometimes it flickers, like something pulling against a thin thread. Like it's testing the space between us. The light hasn't changed. The sun still sits high above. Yet somehow, the shadow keeps growing. I take a step forward. It stays still. Then it takes one too. Not a trick of light. Not my imagination. It's waiting, always waiting. I can feel it at night the most. When the lamps go out, and the world turns soft and colorless. Even with no light to cast it, I sense it there. Pressed close to the floor beside my bed. When I breathe, it breathes with me. When I turn, it curls closer. Sometimes, in the blur between waking and sleep, I think I see it lift itself from the ground, stretching, shifting, like smoke given weight. It never touches me. Not really. But I can feel the air move. A faint warmth brushing against my arm, a whisper of something that isn't wind. The first time it happened, I turned on every light. It didn't help. It only stood there. Longer now, its head tilted. As if curious, it watched me the way the dark watches light, patiently, knowing it will win eventually. I started walking during the day more often, staying out in the open. No corners, no walls, but even under the pale afternoon sun, it clings to me. On the dirt path, its shape glides beside mine, stretching across the ground like a stain that won't wash away. It never moves too quickly. Never startles, it only waits. Sometimes I catch myself watching it back, wondering what it's waiting for, wondering what happens when it finally stops pretending to be mine. This morning, the air felt strange, still, empty. The birds were quiet. The sky looked washed out, no clouds, no blue, just white and endless. When I stepped outside, I noticed it immediately. The shadow wasn't where it should be. It wasn't beneath me. It was behind, stretched thin and tall against the fence, its head tilted slightly, watching, listening, still. I took one slow step forward. The shadow didn't follow. It stayed where it was, latched to the fence, as if deciding something. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then, it began to crawl back toward me. Not walking. Not sliding, just folding across the ground, inch by inch, until it slipped beneath my feet again, and when it did, the air exhaled. A soft rustling, like leaves shifting without wind. Now it's quiet again. The light feels wrong. The warmth doesn't reach me, and when I look down, my shadow lies still, perfectly shaped, perfectly mine. But I know it isn't. It never was. The forest was still. Too still. No insects. No birds. Not even the low hum of wind through the trees. The air felt thick, like sound itself had frozen mid-breath. Even my footsteps seemed wrong. Too loud against the damp earth, too sharp beneath the canopy's shadow. It was late afternoon. The light had thinned to gray. Cold mist clung to the ground, curling around my ankles like smoke that didn't rise. Every branch looked the same. Every tree leaned slightly inward, as if the forest were closing its throat around me. Then, somewhere behind me, a step, soft, careful, measured. I froze. The silence pressed in tighter, folding around the sound until it disappeared completely. I turned. Nothing. Just the pale fog and the faint shapes of trees receding into shadow. I told myself it was an echo. The way sound bends through cold air, the way forests distort. But then another came, closer, heavier. The rhythm wasn't mine. It followed half a beat behind, like something walking just out of sight, matching me but not perfectly. I tried to walk faster. The steps followed. When I stopped, they didn't. They kept going. 2 more paces, then stopped too. A low hum filled my ears. Not from the air, but from my own pulse. I glanced around, searching for movement. Branches, fog, anything, nothing stirred. But I could feel it. The presence, thick, watching. I stepped off the trail into the underbrush. The air changed there, colder, damp with the scent of soil and moss. I crouched low behind a tree, pressing my back against the bark. It was slick, almost warm from the day's fading light. And then, the footsteps began again, slow, drawn out, one at a time. Each step sank deeper than before, as though whatever moved out there was heavier than it should be. Leaves shifted. Twigs cracked softly, their sound swallowed by the dense air. I held my breath, counted the beats in my chest. 1, 2, 3. Silence. Then, a single step. Right behind the tree, I felt it in my spine. The vibration of it. The weight, whoever it was, whatever it was, stood just beyond reach. I could almost feel its breath. Hot against the back of my neck, I didn't turn. I couldn't. My lungs ached from holding still. My fingers pressed into the damp soil, trembling quietly. Then, a whisper of movement. A soft shift in the leaves beside me, like something kneeling. I wanted to look, but my body wouldn't listen. I blinked once, and in that blink, the pressure in the air changed. The silence deepened, became absolute. Even my heartbeat seemed distant, muffled, like I was hearing it through water. And then, a sound so faint it barely existed, a step dragging forward. The earth didn't move beneath it. No weight displaced, no real impact, but I could feel it vibrating through the roots, rippling up the tree, into my bones. It stopped beside me. I felt warmth against my cheek. Not wind, not breath, something else. A presence, dense and near, like the air itself had bent around it. I whispered, so quietly it wasn't even sound. "Who's there?" Nothing answered, only that impossible silence, heavy enough to crush thought. Then the warmth withdrew. A moment later, the footsteps resumed, but this time, They circled once, twice, each step deliberate, careful, as if tracing the boundary of where I hid. The forest seemed to breathe with it, each movement pressing closer, like the world itself leaned in to listen. I couldn't stay there. I ran. Branches tore at my arms. Cold mist split around me. Behind, the steps followed again, slow at first, then faster, matching mine, closer with every breath. I didn't dare look back. Didn't dare stop until everything went still again. No pursuit, no sound. Only my breathing, ragged and sharp, echoing in that enormous quiet. I stumbled into a clearing. The fog thinned there, spilling pale light across the ground. For a moment, I thought I was safe. Then I saw them. Footprints, fresh, pressed deep into the wet soil, leading from the tree line to where I stood, but there was only one set. Mine. And yet, each print had another shape faintly overlapping it. Larger, heavier, like something had been stepping inside my steps, matching me perfectly. The wind began to move again. A soft rustling, a sigh of relief from the forest. But I couldn't feel it. All I could feel was that same weight, still lingering behind me, listening, waiting for the next step. The air feels thick tonight. Not cold, not warm, just full. Like the forest itself is breathing. Every inhale I take, the trees seem to follow. A slow, steady rise in the branches, a low creak through the roots. When I exhale, they sigh with me. It's subtle at first, a rhythm that could almost be coincidence, but the longer I listen, the more it aligns. My lungs, the forest, breathing together. The mist moves like smoke between the trunks. It curls and falls, dragging pale ribbons across the ground. The leaves shimmer in the dim light, silver on one side, dark as ash on the other. Every few seconds, they all seem to sway, not with the wind, but with something deeper, a pulse. A heartbeat that isn't mine. I pause beneath a birch. Its bark is peeling in strips, thin and soft like old skin. When I touch it, it's warm, not from sunlight. There hasn't been any for hours. My fingertips rest there longer than they should. And then, the bark shifts, barely, like muscle moving beneath it. I step back. A sound follows me. Not footsteps, not rustling. A deep, slow exhale. The forest. Breathing out. The branches sway again, though there's no breeze. My heart stumbles in my chest. I listen harder. The air hums faintly, as if each tree carries a throat, each shadow a voice. And when I whisper, "Hello?" the forest whispers back, the same word, quiet, almost tender. "Hello," I freeze. My breath clouds faintly in front of me, but the fog doesn't rise from my mouth alone. It spreads from the ground, from the roots, from the hollow spaces between stones. Each breath I take, the forest answers. I start walking. The ground beneath me feels soft, like the forest floor is rising and falling, breathing underfoot. The shadows move in rhythm. They stretch when I inhale, shrink when I release, and then I hear it, the faint whisper of words, not from behind me, not from ahead, but from everywhere, soft, layered. My own voice, looping through the air. "I'm not lost," it says. "I'm part of it." The whisper bends, echoing through the branches, warmer each time until it sounds almost alive. I look around. The trees aren't still anymore. Their trunks lean toward me, slowly, as if drawn by my breath. The canopy above shivers. Leaves quiver in small circular waves, each motion spreading like ripples on water. I can feel something beneath the soil. Deep movement. Root against root, twisting and shifting, I kneel. Press my palm against the earth. It moves. A faint rise, a gentle fall, like breathing. The moss under my hand is damp, slick against my skin, and when I lift my fingers, they leave faint indentations, which close seconds later, as though the ground itself heals. A quiet dread settles in my chest. I try to step back, but the air feels thicker now. It clings to me, slow and heavy. The mist curls around my legs, gripping like fingers. When I inhale, it rises. When I exhale, it sinks again. The forest is still breathing, but now it's leading. My lungs follow its pace, slower, deeper, each breath heavier than the last. I can't tell where the air begins and where I end. The whisper returns. Not words this time, just soft murmurs like a language older than sound. I look up and the trees seem taller. Their tops fade into blackness, their shapes bending slightly inward, as though I stand at the bottom of something vast, a throat. The realization settles like cold water in my chest. I'm inside it, not just the forest, something greater. Something breathing through me. The shadows shiver again, and in them, shapes. Human at first glance, but wrong when I focus. They flicker between the trunks, gliding more than walking, their outlines trembling like reflections on water. Their faces are pale, empty where eyes should be. And still, I feel them watching. They move when I move. Breathe when I breathe. I try to speak, but no sound comes out. The forest exhales sharply. The leaves around me tremble. And for a moment, everything feels still again. No heartbeat. No rhythm. Just silence. Then, a single inhalation. Long, slow, deep. It fills the air, the soil, my lungs. I close my eyes and feel the world pressing in, soft and heavy. I exhale. The forest exhales too. Our breaths meet in the middle. And I understand. I'm not walking through it anymore. I'm part of it, and somewhere, deep within its endless lungs, the forest breathes my name. It's colder tonight. The air hangs still, heavy with the scent of damp soil and pine. The path is narrow, a single trail winding through dark trees, their branches locked together like ribs. A thin fog drifts between them, slow and steady, as if it has nowhere else to go. I keep walking. The gravel shifts softly beneath my shoes. Every few steps I glance behind me. The forest looks the same. Still, empty, quiet. But that quiet feels wrong, like something is waiting, listening. There's a clearing ahead. A faint gray light spills through it, not from the moon, not from the stars, just a pale glow. It gathers in the open space, soft at first. Then sharper, like the air itself is beginning to take shape. That's when I see it. A figure. Far away, standing among the trees. White skin. Still, featureless from this distance. It doesn't move. Doesn't tilt its head. Doesn't step closer. Just watches. The longer I stare, the more I feel it. That pull. That weight pressing against the center of my chest, like its gaze has a gravity of its own. I blink. It doesn't. I take a step back, but my body feels slow, like I'm walking through water. The air hums faintly. A low vibration beneath the silence. I turn, forcing myself to keep walking. The forest closes behind me. Branches brushing my shoulders, leaves whispering against my coat. For a while, I think I've escaped it. Then, a flicker. Out of the corner of my eye. A pale shape between the trees. Still, watching, the same distance as before. No closer. No farther. I quicken my pace. The path splits ahead. Left or right, I choose right. The air feels thicker now, like breathing through cloth. My steps echo softly in the dirt, each one followed by a silence that feels alive. The fog deepens, wrapping around my legs, rising with every breath I take. When I glance back, it's there again. Unmoving, half hidden behind the trunks. But its head is tilted slightly now, like it's curious. I stop walking. The forest holds its breath. I can hear my pulse, a dull rhythm in my ears. The watcher stays still, yet somehow I know it's aware of me, of every heartbeat, every shallow inhale. I turn away again, forcing myself down another path. But something's wrong. The trees look familiar. The shapes of the roots, the bend of the branches, the same clearing appears ahead, the same faint light pooling on the ground. I freeze. It's waiting for me, closer this time. Only a few trees away, its skin catches the dim light, white as frost. Eyes, if it has them, lost in shadow. The air smells faintly metallic. Like old rain on rust, I take one step backward and the ground beneath me creaks. Dry roots shifting, earth softening. I whisper, "Why are you watching me?" The fog ripples, no reply. No sound, but the figure seems sharper now, edges clearer, outline steady, as if it's gaining shape. I turn and run. Branches claw at my sleeves, catch in my hair. The paths twist, looping over themselves. Every turn looks the same. Every landmark repeats. No matter which way I go, I end up there again. The clearing, the pale watcher, waiting. I stand there trembling, unable to speak, unable to breathe properly. It hasn't moved at all. Yet somehow it feels closer. The fog curls around its feet, rising, falling in rhythm with mine. I realize then the forest isn't trapping me. It's guiding me, leading me back to it, to whatever waits behind that pale, empty face. The watcher tilts its head again, slowly, deliberately, and in that motion, I feel something tighten inside me, like a thread pulling through bone. I try to step back, but the forest seems to close in, roots whispering beneath the soil. The figure doesn't chase, doesn't advance. It doesn't need to, because every path, every turn, every desperate move I make leads here. To it, to the watcher, my chest feels hollow. The air presses against my lungs, thick and cold. I close my eyes just for a second, and when I open them again, the clearing is empty. No figure, no pale glow, only the trees and the soft rustle of fog through the leaves. But even as I breathe again, even as I tell myself it's gone, I feel it, that gaze, weightless and heavy at once. It's not gone, it's only further away, waiting, watching, and no matter how far I walk, the paths will always lead me back. Back to the pale watcher. The forest was darker than usual tonight. A deep gray fog lay low to the ground, thick enough to swallow the roots and stones beneath my feet. The air was heavy still, cold enough that my breath curled faintly before me, white threads dissolving into the dark. I had been walking for hours, I think. The sky above was blank, clouds pressed tight against the treetops, suffocating any sign of moonlight. Only the faint rustling of the leaves kept me company. Then, a flicker, soft, sharp, like a match struck far away. It blinked once between the trees ahead, then disappeared. I froze. The forest seemed to tilt around me as if holding its breath. Another flicker. Closer this time. A pale pulse threading through the fog. It didn't move like fire. Didn't waver or fade. It jumped from one tree to another, like something stepping sideways, trailing its own light behind it. I felt my chest tighten. Still, I moved toward it. Each step slow, deliberate. Leaves crushed quietly underfoot. The air began to hum faintly. A vibration beneath the quiet, almost like the forest had a heartbeat. The light appeared again. Flicker. Ba's flicker. Always just ahead, always just out of reach. My hands felt cold. Fingers stiff as I brushed past damp bark, the wood slick beneath my palm. It felt alive. Like it was breathing. I whispered into the dark. "Is someone there?" My voice didn't sound like mine. Too small, too far away, no answer. Only the faint shimmer again, flashing between two trees to my right. It was moving faster now. Each flicker shorter, brighter, less human. I followed, drawn by something I couldn't explain. The forest floor dipped suddenly, and my boots sank into wet soil. The smell of rot filled the air, sweet and sour, like something long buried. The fog thickened, curling higher, wrapping around my knees like smoke. And then I noticed the shadows. They didn't fall right. They bent wrong across the ground, stretching too far from the trees, curling like fingers toward where I stood. Each time the light flickered, the shadows shifted, reaching. My breath came shallow. I tried to focus on the glow ahead, but the trees looked different now. Taller, crooked. Their branches knotted into shapes that almost looked like faces. The light blinked again, to my left. Then right. Then behind me, too quick to follow, too wrong to understand. I turned in circles, trying to keep it in sight. But it kept slipping away, jumping between trunks, always at the corner of my vision. Every time it vanished, the forest grew quieter, until there was nothing. No wind, no rustle, only my breathing, and the slow, deep hum of the earth beneath me. I wanted to stop moving, but my body didn't listen. Something in me kept walking, drawn. The flicker reappeared again, closer now, hanging just above the ground. It wasn't a light anymore. It was shape, pale, thin, shifting like smoke pressed into form. The edges of it twitched, folding and unfolding, as if it couldn't decide what to be. When I stepped forward, it drifted back, darting between two trees. My heart thudded in my throat. I followed. Each step made the ground softer, the earth sinking slightly beneath my weight. The trees leaned in, branches whispering as I passed. And then, a new flicker. Behind me. I turned, and the light I had been chasing was gone. But now there were several flickers between the trees, bouncing from trunk to trunk, forming a circle around me. Their rhythm was uneven, too fast, too alive. The shadows at my feet began to move again, stretching outward, curling around my legs. I tried to step back, but the ground resisted. The fog rose higher. It filled my lungs when I breathed. It whispered when I exhaled. The flickers pulsed together as if they shared one thought, one breath, and in that pale light I saw them, shapes inside the glow. Fingers, maybe, or faces, all blurred, all shifting. They didn't move toward me. They only watched. Waiting, the air trembled. My chest felt hollow. I closed my eyes just to break the illusion, but the flicker didn't stop. Even with my eyes shut, I could still see it, burning faintly in the dark behind my eyelids. When I opened them again, the lights were gone. Only the forest remained, quiet, still, empty. But the shadows around my feet were longer now. They stretched far between the trees, curling like smoke, and when I turned to leave, they followed, not quite moving, not quite still, just waiting for the next flicker. The air was colder than it should have been. A thin, milky fog drifted between the trees, curling low around my boots as I followed the narrow trail. It was dusk, the kind of fading light that makes the forest lose its edges. Every shape turned soft, every shadow too deep to trust. The ground was damp. Leaves clung to the soles of my shoes. Each step made a faint squelch, a wet reminder that I wasn't alone in the woods. Not really. The path wound forward through tall pines, their bark slick with moisture, their branches whispering faintly against each other. I kept walking. I knew this trail. I'd taken it earlier that day. It should have led me home. But something had changed. The trees looked closer together now. The air felt heavier. And the fog. It was thicker, like it had learned how to move. I stopped, turning slowly to look behind me. The path was gone. Only mist. Rolling, silent, erasing everything that had been there moments ago. My chest tightened. I blinked hard, hoping my eyes were playing tricks, but the trail had vanished completely. The footprints I'd left behind were swallowed in white. The forest had become still, too still, no rustling, no wind. Even my breathing felt muffled, like the air didn't want to carry sound anymore. I tried to retrace my steps, but the trees seemed wrong, their trunks thicker, their angles unfamiliar. A hollow feeling spread through my stomach. I turned again, and the faint impression of a trail appeared ahead, not behind, ahead. A dark line in the fog, cutting through the gray like an invitation. It wasn't the same path I'd been walking. It curved differently, sloping gently downward, pulling me toward a part of the forest I didn't recognize. Still, I felt compelled to follow it. My body moved before my mind agreed. Each step sank deeper into the earth. The ground soft like breath beneath my feet. The mist swirled, curling around my legs, pressing cool fingers against my skin. I kept thinking, if I just keep walking, it'll lead somewhere. But as I walked, the trail began to fade again, slowly at first. The edges blurred, grass melting into fog, then completely, like it had never been there at all. I froze. My heart thudded in my chest. I turned, looking for anything familiar, a rock, a stump, a tree with a scar on its bark, but everything looked the same, every tree straight and tall, every branch motionless. The forest had rearranged itself around me. The silence pressed closer, thick and absolute. Even the fog seemed to breathe now, in, out, matching the rhythm of my own lungs. I whispered softly, "Where am I?" The words didn't echo. They just hung there, absorbed by the mist. Somewhere to my right, I thought I saw movement, a faint shift between the trees, like the outline of something walking beside me. When I looked directly, there was nothing, just more fog folding in on itself, shaping and reshaping. I tried to move again, but the more I walked, the more the world bent around me. The trees began to lean, their trunks tilting in strange directions, their branches pointing all the same way, forward, toward something I couldn't see. I followed. Even as my legs trembled, the air grew colder. Each breath scraped my throat. The ground pulsed faintly beneath me, like it was alive. And then, a flicker of light ahead. Soft, pale, like moonlight caught between leaves. I stepped closer, but the fog thickened again, drawing itself into tall walls that shimmered faintly as I passed. The light blinked once, then vanished. I turned to find another trail behind me, different again. It twisted sharply to the left, narrow, uneven, leading back into the unknown. My thoughts blurred. Everything looked familiar and wrong and shifting. It felt like the forest was folding in on itself, like it was rearranging around my steps. Each direction looked the same. Every turn ended in mist. I wanted to stop, to rest, but standing still made the air feel heavier. So I kept walking. One step, then another. The fog curling tighter around me, each breath colder than the last. At some point, the thought crossed my mind. Maybe there was never a path. Maybe there never had been, just the woods. And me, moving in circles, through something that didn't want to let me go. The silence deepened again, pressing into my ears, and for a moment I thought I heard footsteps. Not behind me, not ahead, all around, slow, measured, moving when I did. I stopped. They stopped. I looked down, but the mist hid my feet completely. It felt like standing on nothing. And when I looked up again, the trail had vanished once more. Only the fog remained alive, breathing, waiting for me to take another step. The forest was quiet when I entered, too quiet. The kind of stillness that presses against your ears, soft but heavy, like the air itself is listening. Evening light spilled through the branches in narrow streams, cutting the fog into pale ribbons. Everything smelled faintly of moss and wet bark. My footsteps were slow, measured. Each one sank into the damp earth with a low, steady rhythm. Then, somewhere behind me, the same rhythm followed. A half-second late, I froze. The forest froze with me. I waited, listening, only silence. But when I took another step, another one answered, soft, precise, like a voice finishing my sentence. I turned, but nothing was there. Just trees, tall, endless, their bark dark with moisture. Their branches drooped like arms too tired to hold themselves up. I whispered, "Hello?" The word didn't fade. It came back, "Hello?" But it wasn't an echo, it was slower, drawn out. A whisper that sounded almost amused. I stepped back. The air trembled faintly around me, like the forest had swallowed the word whole and was chewing it, rolling it back to me in pieces. I tried again. "Who's there?" A breath of silence, then, "Who's there?" Quieter this time, but closer. The trees seemed to lean inward. Leaves rustled softly overhead, shivering like they were afraid, too. I started walking again, faster now. Every few steps, I heard another pair of steps behind me, mimicking, mocking, matching. The rhythm never missed. Always a heartbeat after mine. The fog thickened, spilling low across the ground until my legs disappeared beneath it. Each step felt like moving through water, heavy, slow. I stopped again, trying to catch my breath, but the forest didn't stop with me. A soft crunch echoed from behind a nearby tree, too close this time, then another. Then two more. My pulse thudded in my ears. I turned slowly. The space between the trees looked wrong, too deep, too dark. Something flickered there. A shape that wasn't quite solid, then it moved. Not toward me, not away. Just shifted, and when I took a single step back, the shape took one too, perfectly timed. My voice trembled as I whispered, "Stop copying me," but the forest whispered back. In the same tone, the same shaky breath, "Stop copying me!" It laughed then, a sound soft as leaves brushing together, a laugh that didn't belong in my throat but used my breath anyway. The air grew colder. Moisture gathered on my skin, tiny beads of chill that rolled down my neck. I started moving again, this time without looking back. The echoes followed. Footsteps, breaths, the faint scrape of fabric brushing against bark. But something about it changed. It wasn't just one echo anymore. It was many, a crowd of quiet versions of me walking just out of sight. Their laughter rippling low through the trees, never overlapping, never breaking rhythm. Each time I exhaled, I could hear 10 others do the same, my name whispered faintly. But not from my own lips. It came from all around, woven into the wind. Threaded through the fog, it sounded tired, sad, but wrong. I pressed my hands against my ears. The sound didn't stop. It lived beneath the skin. Inside the bone, the echoes weren't repeating me anymore. They were leading one step ahead, drawing me deeper into the trees. The forest seemed endless now. Every direction looked the same. Every breath came back to me with someone else's rhythm. I stumbled over a root, fell to my knees. The earth was soft, wet. It smelled like rot and old rain. Something whispered my name again, but this time so close, I felt it move the hair near my ear. I lifted my head slowly. The fog ahead parted just enough to show a faint shimmer like heat above pavement, and in that shimmer, a face. Not mine. But it looked like it had tried to be, eyes too wide, mouth half-formed, skin the color of tree bark, blending with the mist. It tilted its head when I did, smiled when I didn't. And then, softly, it breathed out. The sound was exactly like my own. My body went still. I felt my own breath echo back, but a fraction too slow, a fraction too deep. It wasn't copying anymore. It was learning. The fog closed in again, swallowing the shimmer, the shape, the face. The forest fell silent, but not empty. Every leaf seemed to listen. Every tree leaned closer, and when I finally stood, trying to find a way out, my own footsteps didn't follow me anymore. They walked ahead, soft, steady, leading the way, and somewhere between the trees. My voice whispered first. The air changed before I noticed the fog. It came quietly, slipping between the trees, smoothing every edge until the world turned soft and shapeless. I could still see the outline of the forest at first, the curve of a branch, the thin silver of a path. But each breath I took blurred them further. By the time I realized I was alone, the forest had already swallowed its name. The ground was damp beneath my boots. Every step pressed into the earth, leaving no sound, no trace. The fog clung to me thick and cool, curling around my arms as though testing the warmth beneath my skin. I tried to turn back, but there was no back anymore. No front either, only white, endless, breathing white. There was a low hum, soft at first, like something buried deep in the air. It grew, not louder, but closer, pressing through the mist, vibrating faintly against my ribs. It wasn't coming from one direction. It came from everywhere. I stopped walking, but my body didn't stop moving. The fog pulsed gently, lifting the weight from my feet, drawing me forward. I couldn't tell if I was stepping or being carried. Each breath felt longer than the last. Each blink lasted too long. Time stretched, thin, elastic, like a thread being pulled apart. I tried to listen for the forest, for anything familiar. A rustle of leaves, a branch creaking, my own heartbeat. But all I heard was the hum, steady, low, like the ground itself was remembering me. Shapes moved inside the fog. Not shadows exactly, but something darker than white. They rippled gently like figures half seen through water. Each time I focused, they dissolved. I whispered something. Maybe my name. Maybe a prayer. It came back to me, broken into pieces, as if the fog had learned the shape of my words but not their meaning. The air around me thickened. Warmer now, like breath on my skin. Something brushed against my shoulder. Not rough. Not sharp, just present. I turned slowly, and the fog turned with me. No direction left. No sense of ground. Just the hum, growing softer like it was slipping beneath the surface. My eyes started to ache. Too much white. Too much nothing. The forest I had known was gone. And yet in some strange way, I felt closer to it than ever. Every inhale brought the scent of bark, of damp soil, of roots deep beneath me. Every exhale felt borrowed. I thought of the trail that had disappeared, of the echoes that had mimicked me, of the watcher that never blinked. Maybe the forest hadn't been following me. Maybe it had been waiting. I raised my hand in front of my face. The fog curled between my fingers, threading through the spaces like silk. It pulsed again, a faint rhythm, steady, familiar. It matched my breath. No, it matched my heartbeat. The hum deepened then, and something inside me loosened. I felt weightless, my arms heavy, my thoughts slow, the edges of my body blurred. I could feel it. The moment I began to fade, not disappearing, just dissolving. Like the fog wasn't swallowing me, but remembering me differently. The ground no longer felt solid. It gave way with each step, soft, forgiving. I tried to count the beats of my breath, but the numbers slid apart, melted into silence. The hum settled inside my chest now, steady and calm. It didn't frighten me anymore. For the first time, I didn't want to leave. The fog wasn't empty. It was full of everything that had been lost here. Every whisper, every step, every echo that ever followed me. I closed my eyes. It didn't make a difference. The world behind my eyelids looked the same, pale, quiet, infinite. Something moved through me. A current, a pull, not violent, not sudden, just gentle. The kind of motion you don't resist because it feels like where you're supposed to go. My last thought was simple, small. Maybe I was never walking toward the forest. Maybe it was always walking toward me. The hum faded into stillness. The fog stopped breathing, and for a long, soft moment, there was nothing. No trees, no steps, no me, only silence, deep and endless, like the forest had finally closed its eyes.